Now we have the next speaker in line in the form of Mr. Srinivas Adyapak, Principal Consultant Wipro, and he's going to speak on application of hybrid cloud for telecom business. Mr. Adyapak currently works with Wipro Technologies as a Principal Consultant in Telecom domain, a SOA certified professional. Mr. Srinivas has over 14 years with technology experience. He has completed MS in Engineering from IIT Madras. Please come in, sir.
Srinivas, as he introduced. And I also have with me Venkatesh, who is a co-author and my colleague from Wipro Technologies. So what I am going to talk about is application of hybrid cloud for telecom business. So this is broadly the agenda. We look at telecom services in perspective, basically what the telecom service providers are providing at this point of time. Look at how telecom services can be moved to a hybrid cloud. So let us look at what a hybrid cloud is also about, what are the challenges in adopting a hybrid cloud, and how telecom services can move on to a hybrid cloud, and then sum it up with some case studies. So let me take this the first part, which is telecom services in perspective. If you look at the last 10 to 15 years, telecom services providers have been basically voice providers. So they were basically data carriers and not data providers. So the internet service providers were the ones who were actually giving email, then some of the internet applications, hosting premium content like media streaming and all. Then what happened was telecom service providers also got into this bandwagon. They also started providing these services. So between 2005 to 9, they have as well transformed themselves from a data carrier to a data provider. But by the time all this have happened, there's a new crop of providers that have come up. Those are the cloud service providers, and they are sort of being disruptive in a sense. They are offering cloud services, and we are seeing that the telcos are still way behind. So what has happened is telcos were data carriers at some time and became data providers, and now they are supposed to be probably a cloud, carriers, and they have to move to a cloud provider. So that's the journey that we are looking at, from a cloud carrier to a cloud provider. So if you look at the kind of services that the telcos have been offering for the internet, all these would not have been possible without the help of the standard specification bodies like the 3GPP, SPAN, or the IETF. So even to deliver these services, they had to implement these specifications from these standard bodies, and it has been not easy, and the technical implementation itself is still way back, and then the monetization is also not that heavy. So with all this, they have to take a transformation that is a journey to cloud. And we are already seeing that they have to do this catch-up business. So just to give you a perspective of how a next generation network is looking at this, what kind of an ecosystem is required, let us take a look at the one that is given over here. It is an IP multimedia system. An IP multimedia system is a IP infrastructure, running a multimedia services on an IP infrastructure. So what's the content via various access? The network is access agnostic, meaning you can access the content from fiber to the home, a DSL, or a mobile. The circuit switch network that we all got used to through BSNL or any of the telcos have been moved to a packet switch network, which means that whatever circuit switch network was doing, the packet switch network has to do it, and that means you need to have complex signaling and data path. So signaling has been achieved through something called SIP protocol as well as diameter, and there is a data path as well. So along with this, we need a good fulfillment assurance and billing mechanism, so a real-time charging. So we have something called an OSS BSS. So to do this itself has taken a long time, significant time, and we are seeing this coming mostly in the 4G network, the LTE. Now, having looked at the network, which is quite complex, let us look at the device side. The device is also exploding. For example, some of the people who have put up 2 billion already are internet users in the world, so 15 billion devices. So with organizations as well trying to give a BYOD kind of a concept and encouraging people to bring your own devices, you are also bringing your own difficulties, probably I can say, because the administrator, IT administrator, has to relook at some of the securities and the policies and the access to the content. So if devices keep increasing at this rate, then the IT services that are required, the IT servers or the infrastructure required is also quite voluminous, because every addition of a server or a smartphone requires so many servers. Possibly if I have 500 users, smartphone users, I will require something like 1 or 2 servers that has to be added in the infrastructure. So let me give you an example of a vast service, a value-added service which has its own set of infrastructure. As the number of subscribers keep increasing, you see that from 2010 onwards, this is just a snapshot of one particular service that we had worked on. The web server, the app server and the DB server infrastructure keeps increasing. So this, if you look at a data center, will have 50% of it being consumed by servers. And what we are looking at in a telco grade environment is 5 nines. That is high availability, that is typically down to 5 minutes downtime in an year. With all this infrastructure, we are supposed to guarantee services, and the infrastructure keeps increasing. So how do we do scaling up? The scaling up can be done by vertical, by adding more resources into the system, probably adding CPU cores, storage, memory, etc., as well as horizontal scaling, where we are adding multiple logical units, and that can be done through load balancer, distributed file system. And then we also have virtualization, which can also do this both vertical and the horizontal scaling up. So having seen the kind of infrastructure that is being needed so far, let us look at what a game changer could be from a cloud carrier to a cloud provider. The left part is the open garden, which is all the internet service providers who have been using the standard IETF and all the services that are there, application services which are from the non-telco players, because they are more innovative, like home security solutions, environment control. They are adding new solutions, services into their portfolios. And there is a closed garden, which is the telco part, which is more focused on the enterprise networks, because enterprises have large data centers and we are trying to virtualize them and try to do a consolidation with them with the telco solutions. So the last approach would be the combination of these two, the hybrid garden. The hybrid garden, what we are trying to say is, it is a combination of the enterprise network plus the open cloud. So we are going to, the telcos are going to give a best of both the worlds, because telcos have a huge infrastructure and network and bandwidth, and this can be used effectively to make it a much better chance for them to move into the service as a existing player, as a cloud service player. Possibly because we see that today the providers are more from the equipment side, like what we saw in the Huawei case. They are transforming themselves to a kind of provider. Then there is on the pure play players, then the system integrators, and now the telcos as well. So they can as well go into this space of being a service provider. If you look at this next opportunity for cloud, the business potential, the kind of spending on cloud is going to increase $55 billion by 2013, and it is going to progressively increase up to 2020. And one thing what people are agreeing is the on-premise spending is going to come down, while the cloud computing seems to be going up. So from an in-house to the hosted to the cloud is what is going to be a journey. And what is going to also happen is the public cloud is going to increase. The spending on public cloud is going to increase, and all software purchases for new businesses are going to be SaaS enabled. So this is the kind of model that people are looking at. So let us look at what could be a services that can go into telecom in the cloud. I have not listed all this, this is not an exhaustive list, but the IaaS, PaaS and SaaS, I just tried to segregate into 3 of them. From an IaaS point of view, we look at network solutions, unified communications, IPTV, then there could be VoIP, security, network and network management, basically closer to the EMS and the NMS, that can be the part of the infrastructure as a service. Then in the PaaS side, we look at cards deployment, because telcos buy a lot of cards product. Cards stands for commercial off-the-shelf products, and these can be middlewares and databases. Possibly these find a fit in the PaaS area. And there are service delivery platforms which help you create services, deploy services, also retire the services if they are not required. And lastly, on the SaaS side, we have CRM, sales and billing, email, video content, the OSS and the BSS, which are the service, the subscribers facing roles, and the configuration and backups. So these are some of the services that can be put on the telco services that can be possibly on the cloud. So hybrid cloud, let us look at hybrid cloud in the telco context. So what is a hybrid cloud? We've been hearing about private cloud, public cloud and cloud itself. So hybrid cloud is a combination of two or more clouds. It could be a private or a public cloud. So what it does, it federates the resources, both internal and external. And what you do is you start from a private cloud, possibly a cloud which is there with resources internally, and then try to extend it to the public cloud. Now, hybrid cloud for our case could be telco can be the originator. Telco can be the private cloud or the cloud that we are interested in, and this telco cloud will interact with other providers, possibly public or private or any combinations. So if hybrid cloud is going to be a reality, what could be the requirements? So interoperability, which comes to the question like interoperability is sharing of data. So interact between two providers, and then to interact, before that you need to have SLAs. So we were hearing about from a lawyer right now what kind of SLAs in the other this one, the kind of legalities and the SLAs that one has to work out. So this is one of the key criteria, SLA between the cloud providers. Possibly we have that with the various telcos as well. They know how to negotiate and do these SLAs, but this is also very much required. Then there is a reporting capability and a real-time update, because you have resources both in the telco cloud and the private or the public cloud. You need a snapshot of the resources. You need to know what kind of resources you are managing, whether you want to add extra VMs or you want to provision that, or how you want to run an application or so. So you need to have a real-time update and management of multiple clouds. So looking at this, what could be the role that a telco service provider take up? We've already seen that they have become cloud carriers. They are carrying the data, but we want them to be cloud provider. But there are other roles that are there. One is a consumer. Now if a telco talks to public or private clouds, they become a consumer of those services, which in turn they pass it on to the consumers, end consumers. But there is another situation where they can become a cloud broker. Cloud broker possibly is a loose federation of guests and hosts. So cloud broker can take up some functionalities, possibly like a service intermediation. So when I service intermediation, what I mean is I can be an intermediary, typically like a broker. And what I am trying to do is I am trying to build on certain specific capabilities. These capabilities that I am looking are like managing access to the public cloud, and also about identity management and performance reporting. So one is an intermediary, and the other one is all about being aggregator. I can aggregate and offer a bouquet of services to the consumers. So I can negotiate with a provider, take up certain services, take it as a bouquet of service and send it to my end consumers. So that is a service the aggregation. The other one is the service arbitrage. Arbitrage is like I have multiple cloud providers. I am trying to select who is the best possible service provider based on some credit score rating. I may not have an agency, but at least I may try to find out who is offering the best services, and I can be a service arbitrage. So this way, a transition from a cloud, from a carrier to a provider can be accomplished, possibly with these kind of roles. So what could be the components in a hybrid cloud? So we have seen already the roles are also there, but then the consumer, provider, and also we have seen the broker as well. The other is about migration tools. So this is one of the components in a hybrid cloud, because whatever is running on my telco cloud, I would like to migrate or put it in a different cloud. It be a public or a private cloud. If I have to migrate that, then I need certain tools, because the applications may not run as is if I put it on one place to another place, because of various conditions. It could be the operating environment, it could be the hypervisor, it could be the programming language, so on and so forth. So you need a migration tool. And the other one is a gateway. Telecom folks will understand that gateways are something which is like a device which tries to bridge dissimilar networks. A gateway tries to convert protocols, data formats, incompatible ones, and so that communication can be transparent. So in a similar way, cloud gateway tries to bridge two dissimilar clouds, possibly a private and a public cloud. And what it does is it is trying to make applications portable when they run across different platforms. So it can be different clouds, possibly different hypervisor, different operating environment. So gateway is acts like a bridge, and it's just like an extension of your public enterprise, from an enterprise cloud to a public cloud. So it also tries to protect the roles and access, because if I am trying to have a particular role and access in my telco cloud, I would like to have the same access when I go into the other cloud. So probably this gateway is able to do this function. So let us look at some use cases of hybrid cloud. One is a real time and versus non-real time. So what we are trying to do is we are asking the people who are going to deploy these applications to split this between real time and non-real time. The real time can be on the network focus part, and the non-real time can be an offline. Maybe you can move it in the cloud. So if there are certain constraints, the real time will have certain latency requirements, it can have response times, all those things. So the real time has to happen closer to the telco environment itself, and the non-real time can be moved to the public or any other cloud. Similarly, we can, for example, I can take a case of a Wi-Fi service where I am building a hotspot directory services. And that hotspot directory services, I would like to get all the information of I make a database of this in the whole of country or in the cities. And that can be a one-time job. But when a consumer moves into a place, he has to have, it is based on real time part. So the real time is the one where he is going to get the information based on where he is, the Wi-Fi information. The offline will have a complete set of directory, which is a non-real time part. Then there is another one called cloud burst. In cloud burst, what we are trying to do is we start with a hybrid cloud, that is the telco cloud, and if we run out of resources, we can augment this by a public cloud. So I run out of resources, resources become thin, but my application has to run still. But I get into a stage where my public cloud will augment this and I keep running it still. So this is during cloud burst. The other is about geographic proximity. People have been talking about content providers and all. So I want to beam content on a location where I am close to. So I may be in Chennai, or maybe I am in some other city in another part of the world. I would like my content to come from that place, so that latency, all these things are going to come down. We will see that in an IPTV case as well, where content as a service can be one of the service. The other is complementary services, backup, storage and computing. This is already offered by some of the service providers like Vodafone, and then Tata, Telecom, then there are Indian players as well are offering. But the ones in like the Telstra and Verizon are offering much more. We will see that later as well. So we are having seen the hybrid cloud roles and the requirements, the kind of challenges. We want to look at the challenges basically in this particular slide. What are the challenges that a hybrid cloud user is going to face, and what could be the likely solutions? One is the increase. I have tried to segregate it between IaaS, PaaS and SaaS, though not exhaustive again. Some of the challenges we can look at here. Increased operational complexity. So by increased operational complexity, I mean it could be communication problems, because I start interacting between two clouds. It could be security, it could be management related issues, because I need a management platform where I can see both how things are functioning. Then there could be performance, reliability and latency. So if I am having an application, I would like to get response much faster. So there could be real time and non-real time things that are going to come into picture when I am looking at cloud interoperability. The next one is networking capability support. Now not all cloud providers have the same kind of capability. Probably some of them have some layer 3 functionality and layer 2 functionality, which may not be there across in another cloud provider. So with this, if there is some limitation, then this also reflects on the cards and on the PaaS and the SaaS as well, because the PaaS products will have disparity in middleware, database, all these kind of things. And the SaaS we can look at as application level security. So what could be the likely solutions? One is to have cloud compatibility between two cloud providers. The stack is the same, or use gateways, which does the portability and kind of conversion. The other is to have application delivery controllers and WAN optimization controllers. Basically someone who does server load balancing, or SSL encryption and decryption, or WAN optimization which does caching, deduplication, optimization of your TCP traffic and so on. So these are some places where you can reduce the performance and means increase the performance and reduce the latency part of it. Then there are certain open source libraries, APIs and so on. So these will help you to go into different cloud providers. And last you have some kind of plugins which are built into the browsers where you can see a unified management view. Let me look at what could be the cloud interoperability cases. One is on the cloud bus, where we saw that as I run out of resources, I will try to move from a telco to public or so on. And other could be, so what we are trying to say is the consumers are always trying to access the cloud, telco cloud, and are getting into the public or the private cloud. Rather than they trying to sign SLAs with different providers, we are asking them to go through their normal, this one which is make the cloud, the service providers as more than a cloud carrier, make them as a cloud provider as well. The other one is about cloud brokers itself. The cloud broker, possibly because if there are multiple clouds and I have to find out, the IT manager has to find out which one has to be chosen. This is possibly based on SLAs, pricing, geography and so on. So he has to choose among this. And the other one is about gateways, which we talked about, which does the conversion. So assume there is a compute, that is a VM running on a public cloud. There is an application running over there and I am offering storage on a particular cloud. And my subscribers are getting emails from my telco cloud. So the compute may work on a certain way. The compute in the VM is maybe running in a certain way. But then when it has to communicate to the storage cloud, it communicates via maybe a HTTP REST protocol, but then internally you need to convert it into a SCSI, iSCSI or some kind of a protocol which is storage based and vice versa. But what happens at the end of it is, a consumer is going to get possibly email for his subscriptions which are going to expire. From, suppose if his subscription is going to expire for a computer or storage, the telco cloud is going to inform him that way. So these are ways of achieving hybrid cloud interoperability. And there are certain open standards. The standardization is also not that great in cloud. It is still has to catch up, but there are certain standard bodies like the DMTF, which is giving open virtualization format for mobility of virtual machines, the CDMI from Storage Network Association, which is about data management. The other one is about the cloud interface, which is about provisioning and so on, how APIs can be written. So there are certain APIs from the libraries and web services that are there. We saw from Jason in the morning about how HTTP REST as an architecture can be used. There are protocols like SOAP and RPCs, and there are formats in which you can respond, XML or JSON or RPC, and then are with authentication mechanisms. So what would the person choose? It could be libraries where you can abstract out the differences among the cloud API providers, that which are language specific, or it can be script specific like Python or Java or anything. And there are APIs like Delta Cloud APIs which will try to abstract out the differences in the hypervisor and so on. They can work as cloud brokers. So there are certain APIs and open standards which the service provider can look at. So there is already a T-Cloud API given by Verizon. So that has also been submitted to the IETF, for the DMTF. I'm just giving you an example of a telco hybrid cloud. What could be the services that can be put on the SaaS, PaaS and IaaS? And I'll just give you an example of a telco promotional campaign during a I can say during a festival season. What happens is a telco, whoever are my customers, I would like to give them a data service. So assume they buy a smartphone. Once they buy a smartphone, they are entitled for a data service. Now what I try to do is I have two services that are on the cloud. One is a coupons. One gives me coupons. Ticket to gifts is a standard way of giving me gifts. Ticket to gifts. Coupons where I can encash them at or I can redeem them at any outlets. So I can have a 500 rupee discount coupon whenever I buy a data service from my telco. And also I can give someone like a Printo. It's an online, just 2 minutes, an online service where I can print my photographs from my Flickr or Facebook accounts. So this way I can possibly, telco can try to leverage with the other service providers, cloud service providers who are already hosting these applications, and they can collaborate and rather than competing with them. So the last one is about user unified profile. The unified user profile, where I will try to get a profile of users. You see, what happens is in a telco environment, you will have you can say a profile which is distributed among different network elements. It could be in a home location register, it could be on the web services and so on. All this information, if they can be taken out, and this information is put into create a profile based on preferences, my payment options, prepaid, postpaid and all, it can be created as a big data as a service. Possibly I can create as a big data as a service where the content management system is over there in the SaaS, and this can be on the PaaS and IaaS. So for paucity of time, I would like to just say that IPTV services is one of the others. This one where all IT infrastructure can be put on the services can be put on the public cloud, the content servers, and then I can look at the network part, which can be on the IaaS or the PaaS. So because of the latency factor, so this can be as a content as a service. So to conclude, I just wanted to say that the telcos can start as, rather than being carriers, they can look at being cloud providers, possibly looking at private cloud and then eventually becoming a public cloud, which Verizon is trying to attempt at this point of time. Then you need to have good security and regulations, because the legal aspects we just saw in the other presentation, and then strike a good SLA between the providers, and also have a good open standard APIs. So that ends my presentation. Some references are over here. The NIST has a good definition of cloud computing along with references and the predictions. Thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, sorry about meeting this one. Yeah.
So telcos, already, bleeding because of their core services itself, where they're losing revenue heavily because of the competition. For example, in the space of voice, they're losing to VoIP, and in the space of messaging, SMS, they're losing to IP messaging services, right? So given that, what chances do you think they have to become a cloud provider?
See, look at LTE, for example. Everything becomes packet based. So you move away from circuit switched. So 3G and 4G services, if you start looking at it.
Right.
And then the IP infrastructure will be in place, and everybody will go through this infrastructure. And then what we are trying to do is we are trying to complement. We are trying to, today if you look at, some of them are offering a small set of services, compute, storage, then email as service. But Telstra or even Verizon are acquiring custom, if you look at it, they have acquired something called a cloud switch, which is acting as a gateway. They are adding more portfolios into it, where they can also standardize with their APIs that they have written, and they are trying to become a big time cloud players. Probably the other players will also, over a period of time, will try to become cloud providers than being just plain carriers. So we can see that this transition is going to happen slowly, but definitely telcos are already having a good infrastructure from which they can possibly get into as cloud providers.
Okay.
I think we'll be audible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So, if let's say a new telecom provider, or let's say an existing telecom provider wants to become a cloud service provider, what are the opportunities in terms of reusing existing assets, existing infrastructure that they already have, like the billing system, subscriber management system, and what is the amount, in your experience, has been the reusable factor that they have, reusing the existing investments into making the transition to a cloud service provider?
Yeah, right now it's in a hosted environment or in-house environment. So it is not in an environment where it can be put on a cloud. The same way, if anybody asks me if an application has been engineered in it's a homegrown application and I just want to put it in the cloud, it is not going to be easy. So there are steps that has to be taken for the migration. So even the telcos also have the same problem, but probably they have good tie-ups with various vendors like the middlewares and the guys like the ones like the content some generators like the IBMs or the HPs are the ones who give the platforms. So possibly they can accelerate that growth going into the cloud.
The second part of the question is,
Yeah.
Do you also see telecom providers becoming allowing other cloud service providers to be able to execute their business using telco's equipment and telco's infrastructure as a shared resource? Let's say, for example, if you see a virtual network operator, right?
Yeah.
So you basically outsource, a big telecom provider can outsource its equipment to other providers. So do you see this currently happening in any space where other cloud computing providers are currently using shared tenant services of existing telecom provider to power their cloud computing offerings?
Not exactly. I have not come across one. Anything of that sort?
I'm trying to relate the existing
Okay.
existing reality or existing business that they already have with the ones that they can do. They can become not just becoming a cloud computing provider, but basically becoming service provider to cloud computing providers.
Yeah, if you look at say this whatever Wi-Fi which I was explaining about, the offline whatever I said, the directory, that directory services can be something where they can use it and another provider could possibly make use of. So you can sign up an SLA and say that, look, I already have it, you don't have to build it again. Possibly it's about the kind of SLAs that you are negotiate. You already have something in suppose one like Airtel or somebody has it. So others can leverage based on it rather than they trying to develop that application for themselves. So to answer your question, there are things which are there already with telcos which others can possibly use.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Adyapak. Now I'd like to thank Mr. Adyapak with a small memento.